Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr.Lamba's Awakening Call. June 24th was an important day for India, both from the local and the international point of view. And this was the meeting between the Prime Minister and the Home Minister on one side, and leaders of Kashmir, including three former Prime Minister, Chief Ministers, rather four, yes, father, son, Ghulam Nabi Azad, and Begum. These four ministers, chief ministers, other leaders, the prime minister and the home minister had discussions. Now, the discussions were primarily meant to ensure the future elections and to indulge in a process of gerrymandering under the guise of the Delimitation Commission. By now, it seems that the stirrings of a political process in Kashmir has less to do with the latest version of the Great Game that is drawing a chaotic climax in the region, where even the drones have been used to attack defense establishments. Is it because of desire to establish peace with Pakistan? Is it Biden administration's gentle prodding to restore normalcy into the downgrade state? Or is it to do with the push of BJP to further enhance its ideological and electoral projects in Kashmir and elsewhere in the country? June 24 meeting, let's be very clear, by all accounts was about getting the regional parties of Jammu Kashmir to endorse and participate in the delimitation exercise. And what is delimitation? This is a task of redrawing electoral boundaries. And it is an exercise which is conducted all over the world in democracies. Of course, as I said earlier, this process is supposed to be a very judicial process, but it is fraught with political gimmicks and gerrymandering. The main thing possibly people are not aware, but we strategists call it, where you lose by a huge majority. Where you win by a small majority. Now, when the politicians win in India, they say, well, we won for $100,000 votes. That's too bad. If you win by even 10 votes, you're winning. But by winning by a small majority, you are making the votes of the opposition who has lost go waste. And if you win by a large majority, your votes, a majority, which ensures your win, could have been transferred to some other candidate who has lost by a small majority. So we always try to ensure that if you lose by a huge majority. If you win by a small majority. And with that end in view, ridings and constitutions are demarcated. So there's a political aspect that nobody can deny. And that process is called gerrymandering. And it was Gary Madder, an American politician, who came up with this concept. And it has been kept all over. But in Jammu and Kashmir, it carries the additional burden of a communal divide between the two regions. Jammu region is primarily Hindu majority. Valley is primarily Muslim majority. And the National Party, which is ruling the country today, belongs to an ideological stream that wants to see a Hindu chief minister in the Muslim majority former state. That is a given. Now, even though the convening of this J&K all-party meet APM was apparently a climb down by for BJP. And it was a compulsion. that the union government was confronted with, they had to conduct and conclude exactly the way they wanted. A lesson in real politics, that how a tactical move, meeting a leader and the former chief ministers and the former deputy chief ministers and the prospective chief ministers, and that has been converted into a strategic initiative which will resonate much beyond the boundaries and the union territories, and indeed beyond the country. And let me tell you, this meeting has in fact been very beneficial to the BJP at the global level. It has proved that the democratic intentions of Modi government cannot be doubted. And that is appreciated. So round one to PM Modi and Home Minister Shah. Now the value-based political leadership seems to have come with more expectations from the media than from the meeting. They were making all sorts of noises. We want this, we want this, we want that. But they were not vocal during the meeting because of the extreme political sagacity of the Prime Minister and the Home Minister. They clearly said it's a one agenda meeting, period. Delimitation Commission. As a member of the Delimitation Commission, a member of the Supreme Court, a member of the Election Commission, and the representatives of the political parties. So that noise they made from outside the meeting hall was not even heard inside. And if it was there, it was only in whispers, which nobody cares about in this cacophony of public noise. So indeed, in doing so, the opportunities that the opposition had in setting up a relevant agenda was converted into an excuse to live in the past. In the absence of a proactive and collective agenda, the political strategy on display by the opposition was reactive and deeply fragmented political thinking. The end result was earlier they wanted pre 1953 position, now they wanted pre 29 position, and by the time delimitation commission is there, they'll be wanting to be the chief ministers like Ajit Kejriwal in Delhi. Toothless, but having all the aura and prerogatives of the head of the government. Now, when I was a child in the 50s, I used to be confused about Sheikh Abdullah. Was he a traitor or was he a patriot? He was in jail for 13 years, and then he was a guest at the house of the president, Prime Minister, Nehru and Indira. Nothing has changed even today. The Kashmir politicians who were called anti-national by the government, and they had been in prison till recently, were honorable guests of the Prime Minister on Thursday. And actually, this is a U turn by engaging such people whom you call anti national into discussion. On the other hand, it is in fact straight connected to a grand design of Central Vista and Delhi. You know, the whole parliament, rather, I'll call it the parliament, the central secretariat, the Rajpath. They are going to be remodeled, restructured, new prime residence. Now, interestingly, during the meeting, Kashmir politicians raised 6 demands. Modi raised just one: participation in the delimitation exercise. So, given the circumstances, Kashmir leaders have less to lose by accepting Modi's demand than opposing it. So, they either have to be participant or be mute spectators. It was a Hobson's choice. You say yes, you are associated. You say no, the process will still continue, but you will become redundant surplus thrown on the side. So politicians did not want to become spectators on the sideline. So delimitation exercises. Now you would ask me how it's connected with the central west. They reflect the population count as per the most recent census. leading to the creation of more parliament seats. The current sanction strength of Lok Sabha is 543 members and of Rajya Sabha 245 members. The new building, which is proposed, will have 888 Lok Sabha members and 384 Rajya Sabha members. Now, if the seats in the two houses are evenly distributed, which they will not be, it will give a largest to those states which have done poorly on population control. So states like Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, they have more population, though they will have more seats. Kerala would have less seats, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and West Bengal would have less seats. So it's very interesting to know that the states that will be disadvantages have strong regional parties at play with the national party. And the national party BJP has not been able to take either the Patnaik group in Odisha or Mamta or Stalin DMK or even the communist in Kerala. So there. Now it's ironic that the mainstream political leadership of the former state of Jammu and Kashmir, which has already always been criticized and was in jail, has been invited by the Prime Minister to initiate the political process. And J&K has an external point as well. That is the control of Pakistan on Azad Kashmir. And some seats, 26 seats, are in fact reserved for Azad Kashmir, which always remain vacant. Now, Pakistan has gone irrationally how to build international opinion. But there was a disquiet, even muted admiration globally when the Prime Minister called this meeting and the opposition leaders went and attended the meeting and agreed with the Prime Minister. So now what will happen is the more seats would be there. So the requirement of Central Vista is justified. You cannot accommodate 888 people in a building which is meant for 500 odd people. So you need to have. So one side benefit was to Modi, and this case matter has been a matter of judicial interpretation as well. It is required. And since it's required, the opposition to that is just opposition for the sake of opposition. Now, West and Biden administration, they have been quite impressed by this action of Modi. And it's a part of the quiet and out of sight contact between India and Pakistan, which resulted in February ceasefire. But the yesterday's attacks in Jammu show that Pakistan has to show its capability. But that was counterbalanced today only by India firing the latest version of nuclear missile, which is capable of going up to 2,000 kilometers. And it's in the shape of a small canister. It's not a big one, so army can take it with them. Now, there has been no indication in the current media on the substance of the Indo-Pakistan contacts. But whatever it may be, the second part, as I said, was Pakistan. You can't avoid Pakistan as long as it's there. But some indicate that the pro-contact elements in Pakistan army want India to take some steps to show their critics that they are doing something. So this action has given leverage to Bajwa to say, okay, we don't want to fight. So Bajwa is a guy who practically urinated in his trousers when he came to know about the Balakot exercise, and he didn't want to face the Senate meeting. And it was said by the speaker himself. So the Modi government's preferred option for Pakistan is to turn its back on terrorism. Stop it. Unless Pakistan does so, the peaceful relations between India and Pakistan are simply a pipe dream. The current ceasefire And the border in Jammu and Kashmir is important to bring relief to those living in the border areas. But as a present Indian Chief of Army Staff, General Navratna said, there's no indication that Pakistan is winding up its infrastructure of terrorism. Now, the first part, what I talked about Central Vista having been established, that there is a need of Central Vista. And this is a tertiary win for Modi government. The second is Pakistan factor, that they have to be involved, but they cannot be involved directly. They will be involved by discrediting them. And by Pakistan has a very short-sighted policy. They were having excellent talks, back channel talks, but by indulging in these attacks in Jammu, they have exposed their stupidity, and at the same time, they are still on the grey list by the Financial Action Committee. And that shows that they are in danger. Now, as political, Delhi initiates a political engagement with the leaders of Jammu and Kashmir, and this is happening for the first time since August 2019. There are alarm bells ringing in Pakistan. In a couple of weeks before Delhi announces outage, Islamabad actually went into a diplomatic overdrive. And it was that Pakistan told the world that India had new plans to further divide Jammu and Kashmir. And they wanted to upset the democratic structure to reduce Muslim majority. And Delimitation Commission. Now, this is a conundrum for Pakistan. Delimitation Commission is a constitutional need and requirement. Every 10 years it has to be there. Every census has to be followed by Delimitation Commission. Because you cannot decide the ridings. That is the constitutional. The political aspect of it told you. So Pakistan was saying, well, they are bringing the Hindu back, the Pandits back in Kashmir, building townships in Srinagar, in Rajouri, in Baramulla, to disturb the balance which was tilted in favor of Muslims. So either it will be even or Hindu majority. Now, this reflects on Pakistan's nervousness as far as India's strategy is concerned. In the past, what was happening was that Pakistan kept India off balance on Kashmir. Now, Pakistan's turn is to face an unpredictable India. I think Modi has become a spinnex, a mystery, an enigma to Pakistan. This masterstroke of calling the opposition leaders, whom he called anti-national, discussing with them, and they are quiet and happy, shows to the Pakistan that he was right, but still he is large-hearted enough to forgive. So, Narendra Modi has tried to restructure India's Pakistan policy, including Kashmir. And that is a positive thing. Now, Pakistan is paralyzed by cross-border terrorism, the proxy war. And that paralysis was spreading to India. But then India's move has stung violently between pushing the peace process and getting into a political sulk. What was India doing was they'll say, okay, we will not have a talk with you, we'll withdraw our ambassadors. So what? But when you hit back, this was reenacting the Israeli drama. So breaking these endless talks, terror, talks, terror, Modi was eager to gain the initiative in the complex diplomatic, political, military dynamic with Pakistan. Recall 2014, Modi had invited Nawaz Sharif to his swearing in. And at 2015, at few hours' notice, he was at Modi Sharif's house. Goodwill gestures. Everybody accepted it. And then, after the visit to Lahore, was followed by a week of terror attack, and he broke the custom by inviting Pakistan to join the investigation. Earlier, what Mamoon had done was, and earlier government, whenever there was a terror attack and an inquiry was done, Pakistan was invited to send a team to be associated. Modi said, no, nothing doing, this is our internal matter. We will not invite Pakistan to be a part. And after the attack in Uri in September 2016, the surgical strike. So PM had a bigger surprise when he returned to power with a larger majority. And he changed the status of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan, especially Imran, was shocked, surprised, and Imran had publicly said that he wants a strong Indian leader. And now when India has a strong leader, Pakistan is turning diplomacy into force by putting India in a dock. And it failed. India and Pakistan announced ceasefire. But would the ceasefire continue as seen by the drone attacks? So soon after this new geo-economic orientation, Pakistan's Commerce Ministry approved the import of sugar and cotton from India. They had a shortfall. And the next day, Imran Khan overrules the decision. Now, this showed the world that they are penny wise, pound foolish. And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. That's the tragedy of Pakistan. The leadership of Pakistan is intrinsically incapable. I have written an article today showing the history of Pakistan leadership right from the time of Iskandar Mirza onwards. So this reversal of trade suggested significant internal differences in Pakistan on engaging India. And that's why the question of Kashmir, the ceasefire statement issued by two DGMOs, they said the two sides agreed to address each other's core issues and concerns that tend to disturb peace. While Kashmir is in a bilateral agenda, Pakistan is a bigger problem. The problem is that if the leaders of Jammu and Kashmir have accepted delimitation, which lends credence to Central Vista, but it destroys the Pak sector. This is the masterstroke of diplomacy and political strategy. Pakistan has always assumed to be the role of being a spokesman for Kashmir. And now, if they focus on Article 370, they are wasting their energy because that's done. And even if, as some Congress leaders are saying, they'll reincorporate it, they should know they cannot. It was temporary in nature. It has been thrown out. You can't resurrect a dead body. It might have been done in Christianity long back at the time of Jesus that Jesus was resurrected. But it doesn't happen in real life. So the legal status in Kashmir has changed. There's a dramatic definition in what constitutes a conducive government and a conducive environment. And Modi has proved that Kashmir policy will not be a football to kicked around in Pakistan domestic politics. It's not easy to reverse the Kashmir policy in which Pakistan has invested so much energy and emotion for long. So it may take a long time in coming months for the return of High Commissioner. At present, we don't have High Commissioner in each of the capital. It's only the Consul Generals. We have lowered that. The move is likely to be fraught with danger. But then, Kartarpur Gurdwara, the corridor which has opened with big fanfare, they have stopped it. Would they again restore the rights of the visitors to visit? Is a matter of conjecture. The restoration of sporting contacts may be still more difficult because they excite passions on both the governments. And both governments want to avoid it. So for Bajwa and Imran Khan, the absence of a reversal of all steps taken on August 5, 2019, will invite the charge of a complete sellout to India. And they can't afford it. So they are put in a quandary. They are like Sisyphus are Trishanku of India. They can't drink water and they're hungry and water is flowing there. Traditionally, Pakistan has been averse to talking about Afghan development in India. But this is converted with that. Pakistan is also worried. What role would India play in Afghanistan now? If Taliban comes in power, what happens? So this action, as I said earlier, well thought of, well strategized, well brought up. So, in Modi's one action has put all discussions about Central Vista in cold storage. And all the cases that are there would die in natural death. And Central Vista would become a reality because it establishes the need with the Delimitation Commission coming up with its report in the next few months. Secondly, by involving the Kashmiri leaders in the delimitation processes, he has in fact ensured that the Pakistan's bona fides are put in doubt. And the moment you do that, the global approbation and the praise given also makes Pakistan feel that mere opposition would not help it. Now, interestingly, as India and Pakistan circle each other on Kashmir, the subcontinent market for cross-border romance is alive. I mean, so there's a Pakistan production, Dhoop Ki Diwar. It's a contemporary story of a love between a Pakistani girl and an Indian boy. And it's set against the structure of a tragic conflict. The shrill demand in Pakistan is to ban this play. But South Asia and the vast global diaspora wants it. It's a love jihad in reverse. So maybe this is going to ensure Pakistan to reorient, reframe its strategies. But Modi has definitely proved that he is much more practical strategist than the earlier prime ministers before him have been since Morarji Desai onwards. At the same time, his actions are multi-pronged. He is killing not one bird, not two birds, but three or four birds with one stone. And therein lies his success and continued success. Thank you.